Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. The Economics Association of Sri Venkateswara College is pleased to present a webinar on issues in Indian agriculture, and we are delighted to welcome our esteemed guest speaker for today, Dr. A. Amarender Reddy. We also thank our dear students and teachers for joining this webinar. Before beginning with the day's proceedings, I would like to invite our dear Vice Principal, Dr. Venkateswara, to speak a few words.
Good morning to all the persons present on this particular occasion, and most cordial welcome to you, sir, Professor Amarender Reddy.
Thank you.
In fact, I was very much interested to just looking into several of your papers, and particularly co-authored with Professor D.N. Reddy Garu. And the reason is simple, because my daughter also has specialized in this particular area with Professor Madhura and her husband Ramchandran ji for her PhD also. So therefore, it's a very key, interesting area today to be discussed. Issues in agriculture, and are we on the right side or on the wrong side, and how the economists predict it, or how the agricultural scientists look at it, what is important for the nation. And definitely the issues, when we start saying that these are the issues, obviously we do have certain brilliant minds like you who could in fact suggest about what could be the solutions to these issues. Because I'm a person, a firm believer in optimistic solutions to the issues, because otherwise moving ahead is something which cannot be foreseen at all. So our students definitely will be very much delighted to listen to your lecture and try to make their own assessment of the situation with the projected inputs that you perhaps would be throwing open to our children. And I once again, on behalf of Sri Venkateswara College, in fact, lucky enough to invite you to our virtual platform, and I express my thanks to Brahma and his team, because you have all the time been picking up. Economics Association or the economics department is the one which all the time is very active, and which goes in to pick up the correct topic for discussion, and that's really wonderful for any institution. So therefore, Brahma and your team, your the senior faculty, the junior faculty, the students with you, I congratulate you for having invited Dr. Amarender to this particular session, and I would love to just go through what Professor Saab is going to tell us and how do we proceed further. So with these few words, I am giving it back to the student moderator for Professor Amarender to start or begin his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. Before beginning with the day's proceedings, I would like to take a few seconds to give a brief introduction about the Economics Department and the Economics Association. The Economics Department of Sri Venkateswara College is one of the most highly regarded academic units in the University of Delhi, and has not only produced a dynamic set of alumni, but has also seen great academicians and scholars grace the corridors of the college as professors. Apart from academics, the department's day-to-day functioning as an extracurricular and an administrative unit is handled by the Economics Association. The Economics Association of Sri Venkateswara College is a group of individuals committed to ensure the smooth functioning of departmental operations, activities, and events. Managed by the students of the Economics Department under the purview of the teaching faculty, it oversees a wide range of spheres, from the conduction of academic seminars and alumni sessions to the hosting of inter-college competitions. It is indeed an honor for us to have Dr. Amarender Reddy in our midst today. So we thank you for accepting our invitation, and we are certain that your words shall be of great benefit to everyone present today in this webinar. Moving on, I would now like to invite the teacher in charge of the Economics Department of Sri Venkateswara College, Dr. Reddy, to speak a few words.
Thank you very much, Haraba. A very good morning to the students and our distinguished speaker today, Professor Amarender Reddy from ICR, and our respected principal, Dr. Venkateswara, we invited Professor Amarender Reddy to deliver a lecture under the banner of Distinguished Lecture Series. Sir, for your information, this lecture series we began in 2006. Until date, about a dozen renowned economists have come and delivered, distinguished lectures on this platform. And this is one of the flagship event of our department. And this lecture series was started, way back in 2006. And we have had, economists like Dr. C. Rangarajan and Dr. Govind Rao and etc. We welcome you, sir, for this session. We hope our students will immensely benefit from your vast knowledge and experience in the field of agriculture, economics. There was a special reason for choosing you for this lecture on agriculture. You being a scientist, we have got a lot of agriculture economists, but they're not scientists by their training. Whereas you have been a scientist and who have been extensively writing on agriculture policy issues. We are aware that, we have a limited time of 40 to 50 minutes. And in this time, it is, impossible to cover each and every aspect of Indian agriculture. Therefore, we request you to select the contemporary issues in agriculture and the policy interventions that are required. Thank you very much, sir, once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Brahma Reddy Garu, especially, and thank you again, Economic Association, Sri Venkateswara College, for inviting me this, this lecture on issues in agriculture, Indian agriculture. Because you all know you are in Delhi since last 1 year, we are seeing this farmers' agitation. Even the Punjab farmers are agitating means about 95% of the Indian farmers are in a crisis, because in general Punjab farmers incomes are much higher when compared to the average farmer in India. So when the Punjab farmers themselves are in a crisis, that means the Indian farmer situation is in a very, very pathetic condition, because this is today is the Sankranti. Happy Sankranti to everyone, and this is the harvest festival also.
Video ka shutter off kar diya. On kar dena.
So this understanding this causes and consequences of this agrarian crisis type of situation is very, very important. It's a social duty of everyone to understand these what is the reasons for the crisis, and how we can alleviate this crisis situation in the Indian farming, how to increase the farmers' incomes, and how to contribute to this vibrant agriculture sector is very, very important, because about 50% of the population is still dependent on agriculture, and most of the concentration of the poor and poverty is in this agriculture sector in the rural areas. So I will basically address what is the recent challenges, because you are all agricultural students. So this you all maybe seeing the newspaper articles or some listening TV debates on these different aspects of the crisis, especially the new farm laws. And of course, the government of India is repealed the new farm laws, but many economists are telling, many economists, even the left side also, even especially right side and also even the left side, they're all agreeing to many aspects of these new farm laws. Still, we are not able to convince the major stakeholders who are the farmers to buy these new farm laws. So why this situation is there? And the outline of presentation is, first of all, reasons for low farm incomes. We are also in India, the recent NSS round also farmer situation in India, the monthly income, average monthly income is only 10,000 per month per household, 10,000 rupees per month per household. Out of that, only about 3,000 to 4,000 rupees are coming from agriculture, crop cultivation. Some about 4,000 is coming from the wage earnings, casual labor. That means Even most of the farmers, their major source of income is now casual labor in agriculture. So that is the situation now across India. There's an average figures. If you go deep into that, we can see very pathetic condition, especially the small and marginal farmers who are at the bottom 40% or 50% of the farming community. There is a pathetic condition. Their average incomes may be like 5,000 per month or 3,000 per month, which is very meager to cover their own costs. That's why these the very low investments in agriculture over the some 50 60 years that's happening, that's not changing. So that perpetuate this situation. So the most the burning topics now are MSP, current status of MSP implementation. That is also relating to this farm laws, and also the current status of APMC markets. Many of the stakeholders in the agriculture sector, farmers, other stakeholders, they are fearing that APMC markets will be lose their strength with the implementation of the new farm laws. And here, new farm laws are nothing but liberalization of the farm sector. It is just nothing but liberalization of farm sector with more role played by the private sector. Whatever may be, big or small or whatever the role, whatever this private sector, more focus on private sector involvement in the agricultural market. That is the new farm laws. But MSP and APMC markets mostly led by the public sector. Mostly MSP is mostly logistics. Everything is organized by the Food Corporation of India, which is in public sector. And APMC markets, which are regulated markets by the state governments, they're all in the more or less in the public sector. The actual participants, the traders, commission agents, are all private people, but they are highly regulated. So they want to, with the new farm laws, they want to minimize the regulation. That's on private sector participation. And with these two things, MSP and APMC markets, there is interstate differences in government support. Why? This farmers' education is more particularly concentrated in Punjab, Haryana, Eastern UP or something else, is because these APMC markets and MSP, the whole thing is not uniformly distributed across. They are benefited some particular sections of the farming community, especially Punjab and Haryana and UP. Yes, recently some other states also had like AP, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, something like that. So there is a perpetuation of industry differences in the agricultural markets and market infrastructure with the high-handed role of the public sector. Efficiency of procurement operations of paddy and wheat in the public sector, that is also a big question mark, because some farmers organizations are imposing that we have to have the procurement of all the commodities. Now the farmers organizations are demanding for legalizing MSP or procurement. Legalizing MSP is nothing but procurement of 23 commodities, not only 2 commodities, paddy and wheat. Of the 23 commodities, procurement should be legalized. That is one demand. The other one, the like Ashok Gulati, some other Hussain, PK Joshi, some other right-wing economists are telling that it's too costly. Even Ramesh Chand, the Ayog member, is telling it will be, because as on today, with just paddy and wheat, government is incurring huge loss, huge costs. The working capital requirements are 3 lakh crores, for example. If the government include the remaining 21 crops like pulses, oil seeds, some other crops, then the cost will be huge and it is not manageable even in terms of cost, but also logistically also it's very difficult to manage. There are two sides of arguments. Again, because inherently the green revolution started huge public involvement, public sector involvements within the green revolution itself, technology itself for paddy and wheat. Then the procurement in terms of Food Corporation of India and MSP, all these government public sector involvement are favored in only 2-3 states and 2-3 commodities, basically paddy, wheat, sugarcane, now especially cotton after 1990.
Sir,
So,
sir, a small query, sir. Are you changing your slides?
no, second slide. Mine is second slide now.
Now it changed, sir.
Okay, okay, I will keep like this. Okay.
Okay, sir. Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So this bias, because you see the cycle. For example, up to 1930s and 40s, mostly agriculture sector is mostly dominated by the petty traders. Petty traders, small farmers, all the small farmers, all farmers are small farmers only if you take international classification. So especially trade, we are talking here about trade mostly dominated by the petty traders, small traders who don't have any capacity to reinvest their surplus into capital and turn that into capital and reinvest in big companies or big infrastructure. They are not having that capacity since beginning. Even 18th century, 19th century, even 20 means 1930s, that is the situation. 40s also situation. But because after with the green revolution, what happened, there is a sudden surge in the production, especially Punjab and Haryana or Eastern UP, and there is a surplus. But whereas the Eastern India, total even Southern India, there is a scarcity in the production, means scarcity in the paddy and wheat food grains. There is a famine situation. So government want to procure those grains, surplus grain, with the grain revolution, 1950s and 60s, and the procured grain will be transported to all these scarcity zones or famine zones like Eastern India, West Bengal, Bihar, or Southern India also. With that intention, government created a lot of public sector investments. Start with the regulation of APMC markets. Why regulation? If you just if you regulate all these marketed surplus, government can easily procure that, and it can be distributed across India. Of course, this procurement, the regulated market started before that also with the British government. Why British government started these regulated markets? If you regulate the surplus, especially for cotton, basically during that period, 1930s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, cotton demand is going up across the world, and India is producing some significant amount of cotton. So they want to procure cotton. To procure cotton, they should do some regulation. Procure cotton at lower prices. They should have some regulation. Okay, government farmers has to procure cotton in that particular cell. They produce only in APMC market, authorized centers only. So all the farmers' production cotton is going to the market arrivals are going to these only regulated markets, and British government use it to purchase and they are to export. That is their intention. Once that cycle is over, then the Indian government after independence, there is a need for a lot of procurement of paddy and wheat to food security for across India. So they strengthened again the APMC markets. They strengthened the Food Corporation of India so that they procure in the Punjab, by transport to Punjab, transport to West Bengal, Bihar, some other states. And in this process, they need to have warehouses. So they established the Warehousing Corporation of India. And in this process, private players should not dominate this whole sector. So they put Essential Commodities Act. So that what is the Essential Commodities Act? It says that you should not stockpile more than, for example, 5 quintals of paddy, 5 quintals of wheat, or 5 quintals of any other food grains. The stockpile limits are there. That is the Essential Commodities Act to restrict the private sector in the food sector so that everybody is food secure. So the APMC markets, Food Corporation of India, Warehousing Corporation, Essential Commodities Act, all these and public distribution system to to transport logistically from production center to the ultimately consumers, public distribution sector across India. So these are all the systems are evolved to one side to procure food grains from Punjab and distribute across all India so that everybody is food secure. The intention here is basically all the consumers should be food secure. That is the main aim and agenda for the government of India during that 1960s, something like that. So ultimately, that is as a result of only safeguarding paddy and wheat, they neglected all other crops. What they neglected pulses, they neglected the oil seeds. What happened? The pulses earlier they used it to cultivate pulses. Now with the MSP, minimum support price, to the paddy and wheat, every farm, and also green revolution technologies, high yielding technology for paddy and wheat, and procurement again for paddy and wheat, all this support system and subsidies in terms of fertilizer, all this again to the paddy and wheat. Wherever there is some irrigation facilities across the North Indian belt, wherever there is some irrigation facilities, farmers shifted from the pulses and oilseeds to these paddy and wheat, so that they will get 3 to 4 times their earlier yields. MSP is guaranteed, price is guaranteed, government will procure. So all this irrigated belt converted over a decade. This shifted from paddy and these pulses and oilseeds to paddy and wheat. That's where there is a bias against other crops that is in built in. Once farmers habitual to this bias towards the habitual to paddy and wheat cultivation, assumed yield 3 to 4 times the yield of the pulses and oilseeds, assured prices, then they don't want to move out of this paddy and wheat cycle. Paddy and wheat, they don't want to move out of this paddy and wheat cycle, even though with the liberalized. So this government dominated procurement, everything is dominated, started in 1960s and it continued even now. The ultimately what other crops people, other crop farmers are end up with. So for other crops, most of the other crops, especially pulses and oilseeds, there is no procurement. Prices are highly fluctuating. You see prices of pulses, someday it is 150, someday it is 60, someday during the harvest period it is less than by MSP. Now this is the harvest season. Harvest, just last month is the harvest season. You see the most of the crops harvest prices are below MSP to the extent of 20 to 30 on average. 20 to 30, especially all these pulses and oilseeds. And but this government domination in paddy and wheat continued until even now. And in between cotton, it is also gained because of the technology. Cotton yields are increased steeply with the BT technology. From 1990s, again, cotton area increased for most of the farmers in Gujarat, Rajasthan, even some Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, they are also benefited. And but most of the other crop farmers are not able to benefit from these, either MSP, either APMC markets, because even now most of the farmers, 50 to 60% of the farmers of all the crops, even more than that, 60-70% of the farmers of these pulses and oilseeds, they just sell in the private markets, like petty traders outside the APMC market, not within the APMC market, outside the APMC market, although it is illegal. According to APMC Act, it is illegal. With with the new farm laws, it is legal to sell to anyone by the farmers. But before this new farm laws, under the APMC Act of the state governments, it is illegal to sell farmers' produce outside the APMC market yards. So but still going on. That's not a big matter in this formula. Only thing is that the agitating farmers are agitating for MSP. Mainly, if they guarantee MSP, then all this agitation will be stopped. But other economists and government is telling it's too costly to implement, and it will again we are seeing that paddy and wheat what happening in Punjab, water table is declining deep, and environmental soil health, environmental damage also there in the Punjab and Haryana because of the constitutive cultivation of this, perpetual cultivation of this paddy and wheat. So these type of things are arguments are there. So shift in policy again lately from 2003 onwards, government of India wants to liberalize these agricultural markets. At least they are encouraging crop diversification to other crops. They are encouraging direct selling, the direct selling by the farmers to anyone they wish, and they are encouraging private markets. They are encouraging electronic national agricultural markets. In the concept of free market liberalization, one market, one nation concept they are coming in. Now the concept is whatever the 2003 onward they are doing some reforms, model acts or something like that, with the intention to make the dream of this Modi government is one market, one nation. So there is an integration across the time and also space. Integration of markets from Punjab to Andhra Pradesh to Punjab, like that. So that is the intention. With that intention, Government of India started these market reforms from 2003 onwards. Model Act is started in 2003. Again, there are some number of things, but agriculture is a state subject. When the agriculture is state subject, these model acts 2003 is the intention of this model act is, so there are 5-7 components in the market laws. What is that components? I'm telling 2-3 components. Contract farming act, contract farming, one component. The direct market means farmers can sell to anyone, even private people. That is direct marketing, 2 component. This contract farming, direct marketing, private sector participation, 3 components are there. For example, electronic national agriculture markets also there. But although this model act is introduced in 2003, most of the state governments are not implemented these components. Only 2-3 states were implemented. Which are those states? Maharashtra, they implemented most of the components. Andhra Pradesh, some components implemented. Telangana, some component implemented. Karnataka, most of the components were implemented. So that is the status. So government thought that state governments are not implementing these model acts. Let central government itself can take up these these reforms and put a umbrella acts. That is the result which we are seeing is in the form of 3 formulas. That is the result. But we all know, we all see the repeal of the formulas, etc. So I will now, what is the basic reasons for low farm incomes, in the farmers? That this is the basic thing. Government of India objective is also to double farmers' income in 5 years. They have promised this in 2015. Now it is 2020-22. It's coming. Just this year is coming. 2020-22. They promised it in 2015, but of course, it is not now achievable. We all know it. But the government of India intention is to increase farmers' incomes. So why? Because these farmers' incomes are very, very low. It's not only in India, across the world, this farmers' incomes, relatives' incomes are decreasing. Relative incomes are decreasing. It's in the long run. This is a 100-year period. You see, 1910 to 2020-22. 100-year period. The always agricultural commodity prices are declining. International prices are declining. Whatever the efforts we put in terms of productivity increase or technology, whatever it is, they are ultimately contributing to, because demand is inelastic. So ultimately, you are seeing there is a, whenever there is a bumper crop or something like that, generally, because we all know agriculture is implement, no agriculture sector, every year there is a significant increase in yields, productivity. When there is a increase in productivity and the demand is almost stable, it's not increasing, ultimately what will happen? Your prices will go down. That is happening across the world. There is a improved technology everywhere. Every country is adopting high yielding technology, yields are increasing, but demand is not increasing. As a result, what is happening 1910 to 2022, 2020, you see the prices are going down. Then what the other developing countries are doing? Other developing countries are doing in terms of direct money transfers. Direct money transfer to farmers so that the relative income of the farmers will be stabilized in this situation. That is the main aim of the most of the governments now. European Union you take or America you take, per hectare they are giving transferring some money to the farmers. You keep vacant your field. If you keep vacant, we will give some $300 or $400 or $500, something like that. US policy. That similar situation is in the European Union policy. Any other developed country is the same situation. Don't grow more crops. If you keep your land vacant, we will give fallow or vacant. Don't cultivate anything clean. Then we will directly money transfer some $500 per hectare or something like that. That is the situation across India to cope with these declining prices all over India. But Indian government, what they are doing, they are having that MSP, minimum support price, which is a price intervention scheme, minimum support price. That is the main only one policy instrument till today. Only one policy instrument you are using, minimum support price. That too only for paddy and wheat. So all other crops, pulses, and oilseeds, we are just neglecting them. That's one thing. Only recently, government of India is also came since last 2 to 3 years. It came with PM Kisan. You must be knowing everyone that every farmer will get some 6,000 rupees, 6,000 rupees per household. That is PM Kisan, government of India. All the farmers, 12 crore farmers. India is having 12 crore farmers. All 12 crore farmers, they are getting PM Kisan, under PM Kisan 6,000 rupees. For example, even some other states also implementing. Odisha is implementing some other scheme. Telangana government, that Andhra Pradesh government, YSR Raitu Bharosa, and Telangana government Raitu Bandhu. So what other schemes? Direct money transfer. For example, in Telangana, each farmer is getting 10,000 rupees per acre as a direct subsidy, direct money transfer. So government of India is also shifting from minimum support price to direct money transfer. It is direct money transfer is, it's a umbrella concept. We all know that universal basic income concept. You must be knowing as an economist. Universal basic income concept. It is not like universal basic income, but it's a targeted basic income. Target to farmers who are cultivators, whose incomes are declining year after year. So target to farmers, but cover every farmer. So that's the concept now. So why this the government now the slides are changing? It's fine. Hello.
I see slide number 4.
Okay, right. Slide number 4.
Yes, sir. Now it is 5.
Right. Okay. So you see, this is just 2012 data, but the data is more or less similar now. So only a few farmers are investing in fixed capital. Very few. No, this is deciles. Deciles means, if you group all the population into, some bottom 10%, bottom 20%, bottom 30% like this. For example, bottom 10% are investing only 1,000 rupees. Bottom 2% also investing 2,000 rupees. So investment levels are too low for Indian agricultural farmers. That's the private sector. But if you see, The private corporation sector also not investing much in the agricultural markets, agricultural market infrastructure, because we all know we are having all these rigidities. Farmers have to sell in the regulated APMC markets only. Farmers are not authorized to sell to any private corporation. That is, as on today, that is the situation. So private sector will not come and invest in a huge infrastructure under this situation. So the overall 50s onwards, even now, the overall investment, gross fixed capital investment in agriculture sector is contributed by 76% households, like small warehouses, small pump sets or something like that. Public sector in terms of warehouses and private sector investment is only 2%. Very, very big. Why? Because we are having all these regulations. Then this cycle of low investment is continuing over, perpetuating over the years, because we are all small holders, less than 1 hectare, less than 2 to 3 hectares. 2 acres are majority, 90% are less than 2 to 3 acres of households, and very, very meager incomes. So when their incomes are meager and they are facing low prices, their incomes are low. And when their incomes are less, but I know you see recent years, the cost of production is also increasing. Recently, you see the fertilizer price increased. You must have seen the papers, and the fertilizer seed companies seed price also increasing. So the incomes are declining or stagnant. Expenses or costs are increasing. It is, and due to the social pressure gone, not only household, agricultural expenses, health expenses, education expenses hugely increased during this last 10 or 20 years. As a result, and the farm families are pressured to spend on health, especially health and education in the private sector, because the public sector is almost defunct in most of the rural areas. So this forced indebtedness, and indebtedness led into low investments. Again, this cycle is continuing since last 70 years. This cycle is continuing. Unlike you see that developed countries, their agricultural investments are huge. A farmer's average acreage is 500, means 5,000 or 2,000 acres, 1,000, 2,000 acres in even in European, even America or Canada, Australia, where most of the agricultural exports comes from. Their acreage is 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres, whereas in India, acreage is 2 acres, 3 acres. Means their acreage area of land is more than 1,000 times that of the Indian farmers. So they are highly competitive. Even individual farmer can invest in all these infrastructure, they can set up their own market, their own logistics, their own private shop, their own brand. So all these individual farmers can do there, but in India they have to depend everything to the markets, to the either it is a private sector or public sector. That is the situation. And you see the private corporations, they are not able to spend in the infrastructure. And public sector, you must have seen APMC markets. We generally call them as a mandis. So mandis are in a pathetic situation. They don't have proper walls. They don't have proper warehouses. They don't have proper even eating arrangements, cooking arrangements. These warehouses, cold chains, and all these, very, very pathetic condition. You can't store your grain in these APMC markets. That is the situation. Public investment is very much limited in the within the APMC markets. All are political vested interests, because that's local political vested interests are very much perpetuated, dominating this APMC market over last 20 to 30 years. So that's why government thought, even other economists are thinking that if we want to become internationally competitive, because now we are surplus, means our buffer stock requirement is only 30 million tons, whereas we are having stocks with the Food Corporation of India more than 100 million tons. That means three times higher than the requirement. This 3 times higher than the requirement is we have to export surplus grains, food grains, whatever the commodity. To export any commodity, we need to be competitive. We need to be cost efficient. Our infrastructure needs to be international standards in terms of standardization of the food grains, cleaning, grading, etc. We have to meet European standards or American standards or any other country standard. Then only we are able to export. Then that means we have to put a lot of investment in the agriculture market infrastructure. That is not possible with the government. That can be, even if it is possible, that's fine. They are doing it in APMC restructuring, electronic national agriculture master, etc. But we need still more investments from the private sector. We have to attract private sector. That is the aim. That's why that if new farm laws are introduced. But we all know the situation right now. So then that is the need for the lot of investment in the agriculture sector. That is the one thing. We have to increase farmers' income. We have to produce as well as market and export. Then only we are able to increase farmers' income. Now, then we'll come to the current status of MSP implementation. So current status of MSP implementation, you see across India, only one MSP government will announce. Like for example, paddy. MSP paddy is 1960 per quintal. 90 rupees, 19, we can say 2000 rupees per quintal. Now that is the MSP per paddy. So 2000 rupees MSP per quintal. But you see, this is the cost of cultivation of different paddy of different states. So this is the actual cost. I don't know whether you are able to see. This is the all India means this is the cost. This is the MSP. Punjab is having lowest cost, isn't even now today. Punjab is having lowest cost because its productivity is 3 to 4 times higher than any other all India average. 3 to 4 times higher than the all India average. So the cost is very less in Punjab. As we go on to some other states like AP and Telangana, the costs are more or less average, equivalent to all India average. But if you go to Maharashtra or some other these states, costs are very high. In these states, for example, these farmers cannot gain anything from the MSP. So this paddy procurement is concentrated in Punjab and Haryana. That is other thing. It's some but if you see the real problem with the MSP, is you see the most of the procurement is taken place only in Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and UP and Rajasthan. This is the wheat for example. This for paddy you see Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. Most of the paddy procurement is taken in Punjab, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. Whereas, for example, some other state like Karnataka, Himachal Pradesh, or Rajasthan, or some other states, procurement is not at all taking place. Even Eastern India procurement is not at all taking place. The similar situation is with the other wheat, which is another. Wheat procurement, majority 90% of the procurement is taking place only in 3-4 states: Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh. Whereas, for example, Uttarakhand, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Bihar, HP, all these states also producing wheat, but there is no procurement at all. So these geographical differences are there in the procurement. So that's why these state farmers, they are least bothered about whether the MSP is there or not. These state farmers, because anyway, even though that policy is there to procure, government is not really procuring wheat and paddy even in these states. So another thing, recently So you see the market price versus MSP, for example, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Tamil Nadu, market price is below the MSP, even for paddy. Even for paddy, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Tamil Nadu, they are not effective. Only Punjab, AP are effective in increasing the MSP, the market price. Market price in Punjab and Andhra Pradesh are higher than the MSP, whereas Assam, Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu lower than the MSP. Again, similar situation. You see, this is the blue line for gram. The market price is about 10 to 20% lower than the MSP from 2018 onwards. Again, for safflower, the market price is lower than MSP by 20 to 25% or even 30%. So there are two things here, two conclusions. One, even for paddy and wheat, only few states are benefiting. The remaining majority of the states farmers are not benefiting. Market prices are less than the MSP. If you take chickpea, pulses and oilseeds, most of the years across all the states, the market price is lower than the MSP. That means MSP really, as on today, is not an effective instrument to increase farmers' incomes across India. Maybe they are effective in only Punjab, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, only for particular crop. That is the conclusion here. Then the current status of APMC markets. Current status of APMC markets, there are two things. As I mentioned, the status of APMC market is very pathetic. Infrastructure is not developed. Modern infrastructure is not placed. Their warehouses, cold chains, refrigerated vans, because it's a modern agriculture. When our competing countries following the modern agriculture technologies in logistics, if you see their logistics, their warehouses, cold chains, their refrigerated vans, there's a lot of difference between our competitors, our Indian situation. When we will go with this only APMCs placed and there is no private investment, that is the question mark. We have to attract private investment, but with the regulations, with safeguards to safeguard the incomes of the farmers. That is one. With the only public sector, we cannot achieve that in that level of infrastructure which our competitive China or other countries are able to achieve. That is one thing. And another thing is that, for example, I consider Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are most competitive. You see, the market fees in Andhra Pradesh, for example, are together only 1%, 1 to 2%. But you see, the market fees in Punjab, they are charging farmers like anything. Market fees, mandi charges 3%, rural development fees 3%, and commission and other charges 2.5%. Altogether, Punjab APMC markets are imposing about 8.5% of the value of the produce in as a market fee. That's too high. So that means about 8.5% of the price is directly taken by the government and regulation from the farmers. Whereas Andhra Pradesh, only 1% is taken away. Assam, only 1% is taken away by the regulator. That means to make these APMC market competitive, we have to reduce these market fees altogether from 8%, maybe 5% to at least 2%, minimum, maximum 2%. We should not impose more than 2% market fees to any farmer. That type of regulations are required even within APMC markets to make them more competitive. Because if you put a private company and side by side with the APMC market, they will not charge 8%. They can charge only 2% initially. Maybe after acquiring monopoly status, they may charge higher prices. But as on immediately a new company, really they cannot charge more than 2 to 3% to cover their costs. As I mentioned, mandi arrivals are only 22 to 50% depending on the situation. So mandis are really not working that much efficiently in the Indian situation. We need to increase their efficiency, reduce their market fees from 2% to means 8%, 5% to 2%. That is one thing. Make it efficient, and even possible make some private entry so that there will be some competition for the existing APMC market, so that there should be a right signal that if you don't improve your efficiency local market, there is a private market is there side by side. All market arrivals will be going to private market, and you will not be there in the market in the. So at least it's not like that, but we have to make a signal that you need to be more efficient. Your infrastructure needs to be increased to the level of state of the art, like warehouses, cold chains, refrigerated vans, and whomever farmers coming to stay in the overnight. If their market arrivals are not sold in the market today, they want to stay overnight, and they need to have some facilities to stay overnight and sell their produce tomorrow morning, something like that. The type of facilities are not there as on today. We need to improve. That is the APMC market side. That huge interstate differences in government support. As I already mentioned, the MSP, there is a huge interstate differences. The Kharif MSP, you see, Kharif MSP is Punjab, this this UP, this belt, and Orissa, Chhattisgarh, that is working. And again, in case of wheat, only Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, only these three states are dominating. The remaining other states, this MSP procurement is not effective at all. Efficiency of procurement. I think you are able to see my slides. Change your slide. Now it's 14.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I mentioned, we are, because of the biased policy, MSP policy is very biased towards paddy and wheat. So because of this biased policy, what is happening? Our stocks, these are all the red color, the total stocks. Total stocks with the MSP, with the Food Corporation of India, is 100 million tons, whereas our requirement, this is the mark which I am showing, our requirement is only 30 million tons. That means we are stocking more than 3 times the requirement. We have to export it. We cannot, because we are incurring huge cost. Government of India is incurring huge cost, 3 lakh crore working capital requirement to support this Food Corporation of India operations. So what is the rationale why we what is the, for example, if you observe the Food Corporation of India costs in operations, I'm just taking wheat example because you are all North India, you may be aware of the wheat situation. So wheat MSP is 19,250 per ton wheat MSP last year, not this year, last year. And this is, for example, in addition to that, this is the MSP government will purchase from the farmers, 19,250 per ton. And mandi fee, Haratiya commission, logistics, storage, handling, distribution, and damage, etc. additional 7,000 rupees per ton. So total economic cost coming to Government of India is 20,000 plus 7,000, 27,000 economic cost to the Government of India to procure and store in the Food Corporation of India godars. But international market price is only 16,000 international market price. That means government has to incur about 10,000 loss in this operation. If they want to sell in the open market, what is the open market price? In the, for example, government is procuring, Food Corporation of India is procuring wheat and selling in, tenders, open tenders. The open tender price is 21,000 per ton. So that means here also Government of India is incurring a loss of 5,000 to 6,000. Means 20 to 40% loss is incurring in the wheat. That is one thing. This is the loss incurred in excessive procurement. So procurement for the food distribution, public distribution is other thing. Procurement and distribute through public distribution system, that is a social welfare activity, and your government has to do for the people who are below poverty line. But you should not store excessive stocks. That is the waste on the government part. It is not going to consumers. It is high cost incurred to the government. So that is the Food Corporation of India front. Procurement policy biased against oil seeds and other crops, which I already mentioned. For example, whereas we are having surplus overflow of the paddy and wheat in the Food Corporation of India godowns, our pulses procurement is only 6% maximum. Only 2019 it reached 18%, but otherwise only 6% of the production only we are procuring. Whereas in Punjab, paddy and wheat 90% we are procuring paddy and wheat. But you see the pulses only 6%, maximum 10% we are procuring. And again, the biased policy towards paddy and wheat is also contributing to the shortage of oil seeds. We are importing about 60 to 70% of our domestic edible oil consumption. 60 to 70% of our domestic edible oil consumption we are importing from Malaysia, other countries. And we are spending about 70,000 crores in import bill exchange, foreign exchange, because of the negligence of both paddy and pulses and oil seeds, with more focus on paddy and wheat. So again, I will how much time I am having, just I will go means accordingly.
Sir, another 20 minutes, sir.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, sir.
So, and no, I will now, I just gave some facts, but now I want, because there is a little more time, I just want to historically explore what are the policy evolution in the food grain sector or agriculture sector over means starting with before independence. You see the famine situation in 1943. Again, there is a second World War. We are having a low agricultural productivity. We are doing that period, we are ship to mouth. Unless the food grains coming from America to Indian ports, we are in a famine situation. And during that period, almost 100% under small petty traders. All the trading activities, we all know cultivation is still about 100% is in petty farmers, small farmers only. But in Indian situation, even trading activities, like farmers, they will sell petty trader in the village. That petty trader collects some 10-20 households. That again they will sell and go to sell in the mandal headquarters, whatever. All these small people involved in the agricultural value chain, total supply chain, all small farmers involved, small petty traders. Our petty trader is a village trader, is a small man. Our commission agent himself a small man. Our trader himself is a small man, small and feudal relationships. So nowhere that investment required to make the agricultural value chain competitive is not taking place. Investments are not taking place. They are almost self-sufficient only. Over the years, this situation perpetuated. This situation perpetuated, ordered by the low investment, low priority of the APMC markets. APMC markets are only useful for some petty politics in the local mandal level, but they are not really improving their market efficiency, their logistic capacities. But if you see some private people, they are just doing very well. And other countries also doing very well. If you see some videos of these Chinese markets, some Chinese grain markets or even neighboring countries markets, they're very well organized, huge investments. They are there, but our APMC markets are still there at very lower investment. Again, as I mentioned, Essential Commodities Act. Essential Commodities Act are nothing but stock limits. You should not store more than 5 quintals of paddy. You should not store more than 10 quintals of wheat, something like that. Why this is introduced? Because during those period 40s and 50s, there is a shortage, and it's a government duty to make everybody food secure. They are having Food Corporation of India, they are having public distribution system, so they should reduce the private participation. But now it's the situation is reverse. We are having about 30 to 40% surplus in majority of the commodities. We have to export that 30 to 40% of the production to increase our farmers' incomes. So to make that was to make our agriculture more competitive. That means we have to increase more investments, logistics, transport, refrigerated facilities, cold chains, etc., so that our exports will be more competitive in terms of not only quality but all quantity as well as quality. So that type of thing. Again, restrictions on interstate trade are there in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, because once we allow the private traders, they will purchase from paddy and they will sell with the profit somewhere else. Food security will be damaged. To avoid that, government in the 1950s and 60s, they put interstate trade restrictions so that Punjab paddy and wheat will be there only Food Corporation of India will procure and distribute it through public distribution system. That is the system. Again, you see, all these things came historically, as I mentioned, APMC Act, Green Revolution, with the Green Revolution, Food Corporation of India, and to inter-country trade, State Trading Corporation of India, Warehousing Corporation to store the established godowns, 1960s and 70s, big government, and Food Corporation of India, all these things are big government stake is there in the agriculture sector, but the state capabilities to implement to all other commodities very much limited. State can do only for paddy and wheat. They cannot do all the 23 crops which MSP announced. They cannot do for fruits and vegetables. It is beyond their capabilities. So that they have realized it. But during this 1990s liberalization policies, government, with the fear of farmers' agitation and all these things, government didn't touch it, agricultural sector with the liberalization. So liberalization of agriculture sector is postponed during the 1990s until now. Until now, it is postponed because they fear that. But whereas this industrial sector, other sectors, liberalization is taken place, because industrial sector liberalization is very easy, because it cannot touch anybody's livelihood directly. Industries, big corporations, they will handle and they will do some agreements, they do some issue more licenses, they remove licenses or something like that. That is very easy. It will not touch hearts of the majority of the people. But if you want to do liberalization in the agriculture sector, it touches everyone's livelihood, food security, everything. So that's the fear. With that fear, government of India not liberalized during the 1990s, whereas it liberalized the industrial policy. So it is not touched agriculture sector, but there is a perpetuation of petty traders, small people, and APMC vested interest, APMC vested politics. If you go to any APMC market, chairman and everybody are members are future MLAs. They're all future MLAs. They do all these petty, politics, intermix, politics and economics, everything. So they are all future. They are not. Their intention is their focus is not on improving the market infrastructure. So as a result, what happened? High cost of intermediation. Cost of intermediation is up to 30 to 3/4. Means if tomatoes are 100 rupees per kg, for example, and 3/4 is cost of markets. Only some 10%, 20% going to the farmers. So that is the situation even now. Retail margins are too high even now. Some of the commodities, out of 100 rupees, farmers are and consumers are paying only 25%, 20% going to farmers out of 100 rupees. Again, there is a leakages in Food Corporation of India public distribution system, because there is no private parties, there is no competition. Even this whole system, the leakages are there, and grain never reach consumers many times. But of course, since last 20 years, there is a huge improvement in the efficiency of public distribution system, especially with after the electronic public distribution system, targeted public distribution. There is a lot of efficiency gain, but it is all came because of the technology. Even APMC market, they have not absorbed the new technology. That is a big pathetic situation. They are still in the old technological scenario only. So green revolution, white revolution, mostly central government initiative. You see, green revolution in for grains, Punjab and Haryana. White revolution, which is a milk revolution in Gujarat, is all central government initiative. During that, they are successful in that. But 1919 economic industry and so, but now we need some more, for private sector has to come in. Otherwise, with these old structures, old APMC markets, old laws, we cannot be internationally competitive. That is one thing. So what is the status of agri? APMC markets under state control and highly regulated. That is the thing. Monopolistic power still there in the APMC market. They are charging huge commissions. There is a lot of that interlinkages between the agricultural commodities and credit markets, etc. Market fees, cess and commission are huge. Again, we have to reduce them. And Essential Commodity Act stock limits has to be removed. Then only the large players will come in. They will establish huge infrastructure in terms of warehouses, cold chains, refrigerator prices. If they see that there is a guarantee that there should not be any stock limit imposed. Otherwise, as and when the prices increase, then they remove stock limits or they impose stock limits. There is no, because private sector will come from some, at least some normal profit, if not huge profit. Private sector will come in for profits. If on and off they impose some stock limits, they cannot operate in a free market. So private sector will not come and establish their own big infrastructure if there is a stock limit. And these are all relating to what happening: suppression of market signals, revert to imports into sky. So no private storages are taking place in a big way. Now you see the Food Corporation of is the only one agency, public agency with a lot of storage capacity. No private storage godans are there existing in India. And low post-harvest infrastructure, under investment in APMC markets, high wastages. Some of the commodities, you see fruits and vegetable season, you see 30%, 40% of wastage is going on. Otherwise, they can process it, they can store it, they can do a lot of things. That ecosystem is not developed as on today. Government is not efficient in, especially private traders. They are good in the regulation, they are good in the development of market infrastructure, but actual trade, government cannot do that. Only private people are more efficient, and we have to leave the trade aspects to the private people. And probably there is a need for more, development oriented regulation in the overall agricultural markets. So even now there is a lot of mandi price rigging. All these things are taking place. To avoid that, nowadays you are having huge, ICT infrastructure, electronic markets are there, price information systems are there. You have to use these latest technology so that every farmer can aware of what is the going on price in the market, and so that they are aware of the ongoing price rates. And any middleman, whomever wants to cheat them, they are not able to cheat if the market information is going and percolating into all across the rural India. So these are all some of the things. As I mentioned, 90% trade is in petty private sector even now. That is the thing. So what are the legal and regulatory framework since the beginning? So Agriculture Produce Market Act 1937, Essential Commodities Act, that is very, very important act, 1955. Cooperatives, during the 1950s, during those period, collectivization, by taking the example of China and other countries, collectivization, cooperatives, they have encouraged a lot, but somehow they are not very much successful in India. And again, Food Corporation of India is 1964. Again, the Bureau of Standards. Standards are also very, very important. 1986 Model APMC Act with this new liberalization started in 2003. Model APMC Act 2003, they have introduced the direct marketing, contract farming, electronic markets. All these components of the new formulas are introduced in the private markets. All these components are introduced in this Model APMC Act 2003, but somehow this is the duty of the state government to implement those Model APMC Acts, but majority of the states, they are not implemented. As a result, by taking the advantage of this COVID situation, what happened in the COVID situation? For example, you are in Delhi, you are all in Delhi mostly. So during this lockdown period, all the APMC markets were closed down. AP government regulated markets were closed down. All of a sudden, these private petty traders, they are in a consultation, in coordination with the transport agencies, some other agencies like farmer producer companies, any other agencies, they evolved their own supply chains. You have not, majority of as a consumer, majority of us not seen that shortage of even essential commodities like food grains, fruits and vegetables. Even during the lockdown, if you go to any market, we used to get all these foods, vegetables and fruit grains, everything more or less at reasonable rate. That is the vibrancy of these petty traders. By seeing this vibrancy of the petty traders, Government of India thought that, okay, these private agencies, if they give some incentives, they will become vibrant. They can easily supply to the urban consumers. These are all the goods with more efficiency when compared to even APMC markets. With that intention, with that experience, Government of India introduced these new formulas. Otherwise, they should not have introduced. They have seen the vibrancy in the petty trader community during this lockdown period. Even though government markets are closed down, all these supply chains work more or less. But in some states, some very remote places, there is a, the farmers didn't even harvested their tomatoes, bendi, etc. But majority of the cases that happened. So that's why these three acts were introduced. And the overall intention of these APMC markets are one nation, one market. That is, I already told. Barrier-free interstate markets. Interstate market should not be any barrier. That is leading to one nation, one market. Market function right in private hands. That is the basic idea here. But freedom and choice to both the farmers as well as the consumers. Farmers can sell to anyone, whether the APMC market, private traders or private company or Reliance Fresh or Safal. Safal is having huge infrastructure in Delhi. If you are having really some time, you have to see that cold chain and their warehouses, very fantastic, state-of-the-art technologies are there in the Safal main supply chain. For example, what is that supply chain? For example, the farmers will harvest all around Delhi. Farmers harvest their produce at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening. Within 2 hours, they reach to this collection center, and overnight they process everything, they clean it, they grade it, they do everything, and by morning 5 to 6 o'clock, that all these produce reaches to the all retailers of Safal retailers. You must have seen in the Delhi Safal retail shops. All these produce depending on the demand, local demand, that goes to the this retail shop. So this is the only 12 hours. Within 12 hours, it is going from farmers to the ultimate consumers. So that is the efficiency systems which with the technology is there. If we give some facilitative role, definitely the technology will multiply, replicate across India. So that is the situation here. So I think I will stop here probably. I don't want to go into this the new farm laws, etc. If any doubts or something is there, but only one thing here I tell to make before making agriculture sector liberalized, we need to encourage farmer producer organizations. That is very, very important. When you are encouraging big private players, simultaneously you have to encourage big farmers organizations, big farmers producer organizations, whether they are the local level institutions, farmers collective, self-help groups in local collection on aggregation, village storage structures and park, whatever the structure, whatever whether they are cooperatives or private company, the farmers companies or farmers organizations or SHG self-help groups, we have to encourage farmers producer organizations at every level, from block level, state level, at national level, federated. And tracking, registration and tracking of all these private players are very, very important. Registration and tracking, how much they are storing, how much they are selling, at what price they are selling, how much they are storing, how much they are selling, at what price they are selling. This information system is very, very important. That should be with the government of India to regulate this, to avoid this over exploitation of the by these people. Efficient price information system, that is very, very important. Again, you have to strengthen the APMC markets. You should not neglect the APMC market. You have to strengthen the APMC market by pumping in more funds. More, there should be state-of-the-art technology like Safal collection center. I recommend you, all of you, please go and see one Safal this collection center in Delhi. That's very, very international standards having, and expand electronic national agriculture markets. Overall, these policies, the gainers, who are the gainers? Farmers, consumers, large corporation houses will be the gainers. Losers, small scale middlemen, commissioners. Some of the small scale middlemen and commissioners, they lose their jobs. State lose their revenue. States lose revenue. APMC markets are places for petty politics. They will be little bit there. We can inject some competition with these laws. I think I want to close here probably. It is now too much probably. I will thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. That was an outstanding presentation. Your points on agricultural policy were very enlightening. So if you don't mind, there are a few questions we'd like you to answer. These questions were posed by the third years of our course. And if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, they can type it down in the chat box and we'll let Dr. Reddy sir know. Sir, yeah. Can I ask you the question?
Please raise your hands. I would ask, yeah, I would, yeah, Dr. Vartika, please go ahead with your question. Please unmute yourself.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, Dr. Reddy. I hope you recognize me.
Yes. Thank you.
How are you?
Oh, fine.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brahma, for inviting me to this. It was really a very enlightening talk, and also it was so nice to see Dr. Reddy again after so many years. So this was, in fact, it brings back very good memories because we have written a very beautiful chapter together. So, sir, now the question that I wanted to ask was, sir, you said that the private companies essentially do not invest so much in the like the basic farming, like for the farmers, they don't invest so much, and probably the government also doesn't encourage that much. But I was wondering, for example, for sugarcane, it is really for sugar mills that mainly the farmers are producing sugarcane. So shouldn't such produce and such companies which are really making or the farms that are really producing their crops for dedicated factories or for dedicated mills, shouldn't they be provided the facilities, or such factories should encourage more modern techniques to be implemented at their cost by for the farmers?
No, I could not able to understand, but basically I'm telling one, these, if they give some free hand, if private sector gave free hand, because free hand in terms of what? For example, now the big hindrance for the private sector is the Essential Commodities Act. Everything else is okay. Only the big hindrance for the private sector for in a big establishing in a big warehouses, cold chains, or refrigerators or infrastructure is Essential Commodities Act. What Essential Commodities Act says is, you should not, for example, whenever the price increases by 10% or 20%, the law says that you should not stockpile more than 10 tons of sugar, 10 tons of sugar, or more than 10 tons of wheat or something like that. But for example, this happened on and off in a year 2 to 3 times. 2 to 3 times this on and off imposition of stock limits will happen. So that means private sector could not able to, if they build, for example, 100 tons capacity, some storage or godown, on and off 3 to 4 times they impose some, you should not store more than 10 tons, means they have to operate only 10% of their capacity. 10% of their capacity they have to operate. So that means to construct 100 tons capacity is not at all profitable for them under the current Essential Commodities Act. If you remove this Essential Commodities Act, that is one step, that's a fundamental, that's very, very important, but you impose some restrictions on some other way to reduce the exploitation of these farmers by these companies. You put some restrictions or some regulation, but don't put this stock limit. You operate at least 70-80% of the capacity, then only you will become profitable. You can even export some 90 tons to export. But under the stock limits, whenever there is some price rise of 10 or 20%, your stocks should be reduced to some only 10 tons. That means you have to reduce your stock capacity by 90%. It is not at all economical to any private company to put a huge investment of 100 ton or something like that. So that's why Indian agriculture is suffering from low investment from the private sector. Even in the sugarcane sector, if there is no such type of restriction, definitely private companies will come in wherever there is because once private companies enhance their capacity utilization, their technology will increase, their quality will improve basically, and that quality product will be more suitable for export markets. They can easily export them some 30 to 40 tons. The remaining 10 tons they will sell it domestically. Even they can purchase more sugarcane from the farmers. So if you restrict that, that if you remove that essential commodities, here the farmers will be benefited from the more market size. Private company will be benefiting more from the higher investments and higher capacity utilization. And country as a whole is also benefiting because we are exporting about 30 to 40 million tons. So that way, all the stakeholders are benefiting. But because some political reasons, I think this is happening.
But also, I think it is also to prevent a bit black marketing.
That's true. That's true. But to prevent black marketing, this is not the only instrument. There are many other instruments government can adopt. You see, instrument. What is the alternative instrument? I mentioned it. The alternative instrument is every private company has to declare or disclose in a centralized electronic system, they disclose and display their stock holding. How much stock is there? At what price they have purchased? At what price they have sold? To whom they have sold? So that type of information is there. The information you are throwing light on these stocks, then there will not be any corruption. The scope for corruption will be reduced. But stock limit is not the real alternative, policy alternative.
Thank you so much, sir. I think this answers my question very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir. And sir, I think Shubham Pal, one of our members, has a question. So Shubham, if you can just unmute and ask the question.
Hello. Good morning, sir. Sir, you talked about this formula. So can you tell where were the gaps? It means the farmers cannot understand the positives of these laws. So can you explain that?
That's really very interesting. Actually, farmers understand very well. It is not that farmers didn't understand it. Thing is that farmers understand very well, more than what all of understand, because who is agitating? Agitating farmers are Punjab farmers. Punjab farmers are hugely benefiting from the current government policy. Punjab farmers are hugely benefiting. So, for example, I will tell the in numbers. So, they're in Kharif season they are growing paddy. In Rabi season they are growing wheat. Both are procured from the FCI. Procured by FCI. Both are procured by 100%. They are procured by FCI. Their productivity in Punjab and Haryana, both paddy and wheat, are more than two to three times than the all India average. Their acreage is also higher, 3 hectares, something like that. Average acreage is 3 hectares. When compared to all India is only 1.2, something like that. But Punjab farmers acreage is also higher. So their productivity is higher. Their assured price with the MSP procurement, assured price, and they are also getting fertilizer subsidy, huge fertilizer subsidy. The paddy and wheat, they require huge NPK, urea, potash, and etc. They are getting subsidy, huge subsidy in fertilizers. So all these inputs, they are getting huge money. So huge assured income, huge income they are getting. If you divert to any other crop, whatever the choice they have taken, their incomes will fall immediately. Not only their incomes will fall immediately, their income will be more uncertain, because paddy and wheat you are getting MSP, assured price. But if you shift all of a sudden on any other crop, your price will fluctuate. It is not assured. Your market will be fluctuating. So that fear is there with those farmers, because they are earning a lot of money. And also along with the paddy and wheat farmers, there are the millers, there are the traders. That whole ecosystem is getting a lot of money. For example, Punjab state government is getting some crores of rupees, some 100 crores of rupees in commission by selling to FCI. It's a government also, but selling to FCI they are getting huge, because 8% they are charging. As I mentioned, 8% they are charging, whereas other states only 2%, 1% they are charging. So state government is getting hugely benefiting. Millers and traders, hugely commission agents, hugely benefiting. Commission is much higher there, and farmers also hugely benefiting. Local APMC markets also hugely benefiting. So everybody is getting benefit in this current system. So the alternative is, yes, for Punjab farmers or entrepreneurs, they can easily shift to some alternative higher income alternatives. But in the transition period, government has to give some lumps of money. Crop diversification fund, they have to create crop diversification fund. Per hectare, okay, 10,000 or 20,000, 30,000, I am giving per hectare. You please don't cultivate paddy, you cultivate some other crop, I am giving some direct money transfer to your account. So that type of systems may be required in the long run, because already Punjab environmentally very much degraded in terms of water table. 1 meter deep water is gone or something like that. Environmentally is also very damaging with the monocrop. So keeping this, government, state government or central government has to establish some crop diversification fund. Every per hectare shift from paddy to any other crop, they have to give some 10,000, 20,000. For example, in Punjab, even tenancy rates are huge. I think 20,000, 30,000, even 40,000 per acre. Why that much high that tenancy rate is there? Because farmers are earning a lot of money per acre or hectare. So that is the situation. To transition, your government has to give a lot of fund. Otherwise, the farmers will not change. It is paddy and wheat cultivation is very lucrative for them. And you see, paddy and wheat, they don't require a lot of labor also. Everything is mechanized. If you want to cultivate another crop, you need a lot of labor. Labor is very costly in Punjab. So all these dimensions are more favoring paddy. So we have to give some per hectare crop diversification money transfer type of thing. Then only farmers will shift. And you see the farmers education is not there across India. So that is other farmers, because, and again mostly these education is some some what is that, activists also playing a bigger role. Activists also playing a bigger role. Some political factors. It's not economic factors, but political factors also playing a bigger role, because both government as well as the opposition wants to attract farmers. They want to take psychological gain from the farmers. So they are supporting. Opposition always support farmers education type of thing. That.
So, sir, in your opinion, this repeal of 3 farm laws is a very big step backward?
We cannot say very big step backward, because there are two things. It is now, for example, there are 3 components of 3 farm laws. One is opening trade to other players, private players. Already now more or less existing. Private players are already there in many of the agricultural commodities. And contract farming. Second law is a contract farming. Contract farming is also already there. You must be seeing Punjab, Pepsi, so many other things. That is also there, but not that much formalized, legalized or something like that. So opening of the markets already there. Contract farming is already there. Only 1/3 Essential Commodities Act, that removing that stockpiling limits, that is a little bit hindrance now, and private players will not come anyway now in the current situation. But it is a now we cannot say it's a too much backward step, but it's not a forward step. And now, even now also, there is a with the government, state government, for example, BJP government states are there. Now the agriculture is a state subject. Agriculture is a state subject. States are free to implement their own laws. They can make their own laws. They can liberalize their own markets. Now it is the entire ball game is shifted from central government to state government. So okay, now the even FCI procurement also more or less shifted. Decentralized procurement is there. So now entire ball game is shifted from central government to state government. State governments are free to implement their own laws. Anyway, agriculture is a state subject. So now the central government don't want to touch, as maybe 1 year or next elections, they don't want to touch this. I think so.
Thank you, sir, for your answer. So we have a question in the chat box by Naman Kapoor. So Naman wants to ask that, can you please tell where India stands on genetically modified seeds?
What?
I'm sorry, sir, am I audible?
Yes, tell me.
Sir, yes, so sir, Naman is asking.
Genetically modified seeds. Okay. And again, here also, I think Vatika madam, maybe she may be more knows all these things. But here also policy clarity is not there, because our policy is not dominated by some evidence or some very good structured research. Unlike some other developed countries, even developed countries also, European Union, more stricter rules than India. But when our policy is driven by evidence-based, that all this scientific based research, then we can expect some good things happen. But now it is mostly hijacked. This entire GM discussion is mostly hijacked by people who don't have good information, people who don't have authentic data, and it is hijacked totally by this type of people. Whereas the scientific organizations, they are lagging behind in participation in discussions, basically because they don't have that much freedom to express their opinion in the public fora type of thing. So because of that reason, probably it is in backseated, even GM discussions, it is now dominated or hijacked by some semi information or half information vocal activist groups. Even it is not wrong that activist group hijack that, but they have to prove our evidence based discussions. They have to come in and discuss with the government, then only this problem will solve. Otherwise it will hinder on, I think.
Yes. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. But Krishna Kumar, one of our teachers, he's asking that, but don't scientists themselves argue that GM crops are very water intensive?
Water intensive?
Yes, sir, water
Probably
intensive.
one thing, probably indirectly, because GM crops productivity is much higher than the normal crops. Whenever you want to increase productivity, generally they will consume more water. Productivity means it is nothing but more irrigation or more water is required. Probably that is one side of argument, but it is not too much, because if you take per hectare, water use may be more, but per yield, per water requirement per unit of production, water may be less. That is one side of argument. There are a lot of different arguments are coming up. But overall,
Okay,
probably, for example, you see the cotton, some estimations, huge benefits to farmers. We are exporting lot. Earlier, before 1990, we are importing. Now we are exporting lot. Farmers are getting a lot of benefit from this cotton cultivation, especially Gujarat, some parts of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. And but always GM technology is evolving.
Okay, so thank you, sir. And just for the members of, just for the audience members, Vartika ma'am and Dr. Reddy sir put a message in the chat box for a chapter they've written on GM crops. So if you want to know more about that, you can go through that. And if nobody else has any questions, sir, I would like to ask you some questions which were put forward by the third years of our course. So the first question is that the new labor coach have reduced the industrial labor force, which will create unstoppable and absolute unemployment, and as a result of which the laborers will shift to the rural side. Wouldn't it affect the cumulative casualty of the economy?
No, actually, this reverse migration, probably it is a short-term reverse migration. It is only temporary or transitionary migration. Once there is a normalcy, probably the whomever gone back to villages, they will come back again to urban centers. If one or two or one or some very few people wants to stay in the village, they may be having their own livelihood sources in the village when compared to the urban center. I don't think it's a very transitionary period only, probably. But it exposed the lack of any safeguards, safety nets for migrant workers in urban areas. Probably government has to look into what type of safeguards or safety nets has to be put in place for these migrant workers in terms of income or employment or any other source or unemployment insurance type of thing, or housing also big problem now. So this type of it exposed that that type of negative aspects of urbanization. Probably government will come out with some sort of solutions for this migrant people problems.
Sir,
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have a question, sir.
Hmm.
If I understand correctly, your whole of your presentation, change of cropping pattern is the need of the hour.
Yes.
That
Right.
will address several of the problems.
Yes.
What is that the government, should do in terms of giving a direction,
Yes.
both policy, support, legislative support, and also any kind of financial assistance?
Yes. That's a big problem. As I mentioned, one is if you diversify your acreage from paddy and wheat to some other crop, per hectare, government will directly transfer money to your account, maybe 10,000 or 20,000. That is one direct support for diversification. The other thing is major thing. For example, now paddy and wheat, government of India is procuring in a open-ended type of thing. Whatever the farmers arrivals are coming, paddy and wheat, entire paddy and wheat government is procuring in some states. So government what has to do? It should be closed-ended. For example, you select whatever may be the way. For like this year, this particular village. Next year, alternatively next year, next village, or that on third year another village, something like that. But you put a mechanism that it should not be open-ended. As for example, government of India require only 40 million tons of paddy and wheat. Once the buffer stock reached 40 million tons, government has to stop it procuring. Then they have to sell in the open market only, or otherwise they shift to some other crop. That is the only way. So it will reduce the attractiveness of paddy and wheat. It will reduce. First of all, you have to reduce the attractiveness of paddy and wheat. How you will reduce? Procurement. Okay, procurement basic purpose is food security, not the taking from the farmers. Basic requirement is for PDS, public distribution system, ration shops. So how much is required for ration shop? You procure that much only. Remaining thing you stop there. And this you have to implement in alternatively. One village full 1 year, and next year next village, next year next village, so that there will not be agitation from other villages. So this type of mechanism from open-ended procurement to closed-ended until you fill up your buffer stock norms and PDS system, then you stop the procurement. So it will reduce the incentives for paddy and wheat. Ultimately, farmers will shift to some other crops and encourage cultivation of other crops like paddy and oil seeds through incentives or subsidies or something like that.
Thank you, sir. Yes. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, we would like to, close the session formally. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. Just one more question, sir. That the one of the third years asking, sir, that how is the economy going to address the issue that the rural sector will once again be affected with zero marginal productivity of the excess agricultural landless laborers?
So actually, this is what now we don't have that zero marginal productivity is it is but at least no, in agriculture in rural areas, for example, now that pluri-activity is going on. You take any farmer, average farmer is getting only 30% of their income from agriculture. 40% from agricultural labor, some 20% from business, some other from some other migration, remittances. So every household is having multiple sources of income. That is called pluri-activity. It's going on. Only one thing is we have to encourage that pluri-activity. Means in some other incentives or even migration or rural to urban migration also, it's taking place on its own because of the attractiveness pull from this urban areas. But within the rural areas, we have to make employment, so more multiple employment sources. Like basic thing is that we have to develop infrastructure. Once roads, markets exist, then automatically economy will rejuvenate within the rural areas. That way we can encourage employment in other source of activities.
Okay, thank you, sir. So thank you for answering the questions which were posed by our audience. The answers were very in-depth and handled satisfactorily. Before I hand over the mic to Dr. Brahma Reddy, sir, our teacher in charge, to give the vote of thanks, I would just like to ask you if you have any closing words for attendees.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Actually, it's a I know this. Venkateswara College is a very well-known college. I studied in Pusa Institute basically for 3 years. My PhD in also from Delhi. Again, once again, thank you, Brahma Reddy sir, and all the staff, faculty of Sri Venkateswara College, and students also for listening, patiently listening, and also very good questions. Basically, very good questions, interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those kind words, sir. Now we'll request Dr. Brahma Reddy sir to give the vote of thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Yash. On behalf of the Economics Association, Department of Economics, Sri Venkateswara College, and the management of the Sri Venkateswara College, and also our IQAC coordinator, a dynamic, researcher. She is more known as a researcher, and of course, equally as a teacher. I would like to express our gratitude to Dr. A. Amarender Reddy, Principal Scientist at Hyderabad, the Dryland Agriculture. Sir, in fact, sir, many people don't know that 2/3 of India's cultivable land is a dry land.
Yes.
And it is a paradox that, you produce more of cereals, which requires water.
Yes.
And that is, I think, the crux of the problem. We should have policies to promote cultivation in dry land.
Yes.
For example, oil seeds and etc.
So, one of the main problem is that free electricity. Electricity to pump groundwater.
Across the state, across the country.
Yes.
Sir,
populistic political policies. These are all populistic policies. Because of that reason, we are over-exploiting groundwater and increasing the area under paddy and wheat with the neglect of other crops.
So basically, politics is failing us.
Yes, right.
In achieving the desired national welfare goals.
Yes, right.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. I have been very attentively not only listening to your presentation, I regularly read our articles.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Indian agriculture. You have covered, all 4 to 5 aspects. That is the status of Indian agriculture in terms of the facts. Then you came to MSP policy. How it is favoring only few regions and few crops. Neglecting oil seeds, particularly where we are importing $10 billion worth of oil. People only know one oil that we import from the Gulf countries, but many people don't know that what we eat today, we are also importing the edible oils. And you also addressed the reform agenda, the existing legal and regulatory framework, which requires attention in terms of giving a proper regulatory framework, and your views on the recent reform laws, and your overall presentation has been very great learning experience to all of us. Our students also have immensely benefited. I'm sure some of them will take up Indian agriculture or agriculture in general as their area of research in the course of the time. I once again thank you very much for giving your very valuable time. In fact, we thought of it to be 1 hour or so, but already we are touching 1 hour 40 minutes. So that is the intensity of the topic, and you yourself as a researcher.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me, especially. Thank you.